Hello, YouTube friends. I'm Megan, and Milo's with me today, and we are fulfilling a request for a class that is Somatic Yoga and Yin Yoga for your delicious, luscious spine. So I'm going to ask you just to sit for just a moment with me, and we want to just think about all of the beautiful ways that our spine moves. So you can have your legs crossed, you can have them out in front of you. It's really what's comfortable to you because it's about the spine. So take the legs in the position that makes the spine comfortable. Take your hands somewhere on your thighs, and as you take a breath in, let your heart come forward. And you might even take your gaze up. And as you take your breath out, just let yourself land, let your shoulders come back. So inhale, heart forward, shoulders back, smile your collarbones. Exhale back. And you'll also notice as you're doing this, your pelvis is tilting forward. So we're creating what we call extension of the spine, or we call it in yoga, back bending. And that's the first thing we're going to do in this practice is the back bends. Then the complementary opposite to that, we call forward folds, or sometimes we call it flexion of the spine. So now as you inhale, I want you to actually breathe into your back body and round. And exhale, let go. So think of breathing into the backs of your lungs and let that go. And see how that feels. So you're looking for any tightness, any discomfort, and coming back to your neutral position. All right, so that's our flexion. The next thing we'll do is a side bend, or what we call a lateral bend. So just take your right hand to the ground and breathe in and reach through the left arm and bend towards the right. There you go. So think we're making space on the vertebrae on the left side and compressing the vertebrae on the right side. And we'll go to the other side. Take your left hand down. Inhale, right arm up and reach. Exhale, right hand down. So just a little bit of a warm up and a setting the stage for all of the beautiful ways your spine moves. And there's more, of course, but you're going from side to side at your pace. Take one more round. Notice if one side is a little bit stickier than the other. And back to the center. And then the last movement we'll explore today in the Somatics and Yin is rotation. So now as you inhale, take your left hand to your right leg somewhere to the right side and right hand behind you and rotate to the right. Even your neck can turn. Exhale, come back. Inhale. Breathe in, rotate. Exhale, come back, just float back to your center, your space of grace. Take a few of those. And you might notice again that one side is more available than the other. Maybe even with the neck you notice. So just feeling all the ways that our spine can move, including rotation. Last one. All right. And then we're going to come into the back bending first. So the reason being is that I'm going to take you through the more rejuvenating postures. So then at the end, we can really relax our whole spine. So we're going to come on to the front side. And my first clue is you'll notice I have a blanket down. I like extra padding for any sort of yin class, but I'm going to take a second blanket. So grab some blankets, grab some cushions. I like to keep my low back a little longer. Many of us, it's the lumbar area that gets cranky and back bends. So the trick to that is if you take a blanket, you can see it's not very high, and you're going to put it so it comes right to the tops of your hip crease, the bottom there. The reason being is if you find just the right spot, it'll feel like the edge of your butt cheeks are falling off the blanket. And what that does is it tilts your pelvis down towards the floor, your tail towards the floor, and it lengthens your low back. So you can give that a try, see if it helps you or if that's something you want to consider. And then coming down, just resting on your belly. So we're familiarizing ourselves with the front of the spine. You can shake out your legs, shift your hips, whatever distance your legs want to be apart. So I want to remind you, again, this is about your spine. So I know some styles of yoga, you have to keep your legs together. Your legs go wherever your spine is comfortable. Your arms go wherever your spine is comfortable. And then I want you to visualize the front of your spine, which is what we call the stira, the steadiness. It's what gives us stability in the spine. It's the discs often crabby. They take a bad hit for a lot of reasons. But in back bends, we're actually creating space in the discs if we do it in a way that's accommodating and comfortable. So we're going to start to feel our breath in. And as you breathe in, just lift slightly. And as you breathe out, come down, float down. So I want you to think of using the buoyancy of your breath. Inhale up. And exhale. Come down. I'm not using my arms. I'm using the strength of my back. And think of all the way from the tail to the base of the head, trying to equalize the amount of activity or how you're recruiting the muscles. So it's not all going in the low back. It's not all going in the neck. Nice, even. Lift from your collarbones, your rib cage. If you feel like you're pushing into your arms, you could also try the arms back here. The other thing is it might feel good to let your head rest on one cheek when you come down. Inhale through the center. Exhale. Come down. So letting the breath help you. Notice the way that your front body pushes into the ground. And there's a forward and upward momentum just from the breath. And then you'll feel your spinal muscles on the backside shorten and engage. In the front, that steroside, creating space. Think of creating space in the discs of the spine. I'm just doing a few more of those. Just familiarizing what it feels like to compress the back of the spine and not too much compression, right? The whole thing with yin is that we want gentle pressure or just a little bit of stress on the joints. We use the term tension. Tension is the stretching, so that would be the front of the spine, and compression on the back. So not too much compression, not too much tension. And then come back down, and we're going to find our first yin posture. So what you can do is take your arms wherever it's comfortable. The first option would be to just stay low, and you could cross opposite hand to elbow. Slide your elbows in just a little bit. So you're just in a small little lift of the chest. So the rib cage, probably the bottom of the rib cage is resting on the ground. You've got a nice pedestal for your forehead. It's a nice, easy, low position. We're going to be here for about 2 minutes. If you want to come up to position 2, you might extend your arms and come up a little bit higher. You can take your hands as wide as it feels comfortable for you. If you want to be even higher, you could come onto your forearms. And even in the forearms, you could fall into the shoulders, or if you want to lift even higher, use your arms here just a little bit to create some structure, stability. So you'll notice I'm going to tuck my tail, make my low back longer so I can get more stretch in the thoracic spine, those 12 vertebrae. And I like to support my head. So this is another option. So find you do you in the yin. And I want you to focus on where you feel the spaciousness in the front of the spine and where you feel the compression in the back of the spine. And can you equalize the spaciousness and the compression? And in yin, we want to let the muscles relax. So you should be able to kind of shift your hips, shake out your legs. The gluteal muscles and hamstrings are on holiday. Your arms might be helping to hold you. But let the muscles relax. Feel the bones of your spine. And particularly focus on the front. So if you have discomfort in your low back, see the spaciousness between the discs in the low back, or maybe the center of your spine. And your breath is a really handy helper. You can breathe and notice how the breath will give you a little more lift, a little more length. As you breathe out, relax the muscles in the buttocks, the thighs, the muscles even in the back of the spine. So yin is about working into the connective tissues. And I'm going to leave you here for about 5 to 8 breaths. Just explore your breath, maybe bringing the breath up the front body to continue to create levity, and down the back body to release and relax as you breathe out. So typically in Yin, we do our best not to move, but with all things, there are exceptions to that rule. So if you find you're really uncomfortable, come down. Or for this last 30 seconds or so, if you feel like you want to come up even higher, you know your back bend practice, you can do that too. So more effort, less effort, that would be the reason that we'd move. If our body invites us to go a little bit deeper, or it says, back off. And recognize the nice stretch through all of your organs in the front of the body. Take 3 more nice, deep rounds of breath if it's there for you. Full breath in through the front. Lifting the front. Complete breath out. Relaxing the back. And as we come out of Yin poses, we do so really slowly. So think of taking like 3 to 5 breaths. You're really easing your way out. You're feeling your way out. Notice every little bit of release. Is there anything that doesn't release? You can come all the way down. And then we're going to be rolling on to our right side. So you may want to move that blanket just for a moment. But when we come out of Yin postures, you can either remain still and notice what it feels like. So that could be on your front side. I generally like to tell you where we're going next because maybe you want to rest on your right side. But if you know there's still any compression or discomfort in your low back, feel free to take some movement, even just rocking your low back. If you like a child's pose, you can take a child's pose. Let all of the sensations of that extension of the spine release. And then we're going to do our lateral bend next. So we will come on to our right side if you're not there. And you could take that same blanket, any blanket, fold it over a little bit more. It's going to go right underneath us, just at the top of the hip and by the ribs. So right about here. I like it even a little bit higher, and I also like it to be a bit denser. So I take a block and put my blanket on top of the block. I like that feeling of compression on the side body, but test it out and see what works for you. Extend your right arm. You can use your right arm as a pillow, or if that feels like it's too far away, put a pillow underneath there. So what we're doing is we're using the props to already create a side bend. You'll feel more spacious in your left side from the hip to the armpit and compression on the right side. Then just take your left hand to your ribs, left ribs. See if you can breathe into your left lung. And if you can't do it because you're distracted by any discomfort in your right side, you know you're propping too high or it's too hard, make it softer. So we're just giving this left side a little bit of help in its length by putting something under the right side. And then breathing into that left lung. Once you connect fully with your breath, you can think as you're breathing in to lift the left rib cage, lift the lung, and spread the hip and armpit away from one another. So you're creating more space in the side of the spine, the left side. And then if you want to add more stretching to that, as you breathe in, you might reach your arm, you might reach your leg. Just adding a little more lengthening, a little more tension. And exhale, let that go. So inhale, reach. And exhale, release. So that reminder again, it's about your spine. So if your shoulder's not comfortable doing that, you could just keep your hand at your shoulder instead of reaching. You're just using arm and leg to create more space in the left side of the spine. Going in and out of it. getting familiar with whatever you chose to put underneath the right side. Remembering that yin works in both the tension through the left and the space on the right. And then we're going to take this right into our hold. So if it feels better to keep your left hand at your side, you can extend your leg if it's there for you. I like to take my hand overhead, but I also like to put a block underneath it. And I like to drop my head so that the left side of my neck is getting a little stretched too. But you got to find that space for you where you can feel compression in the right side and the levity, the spaciousness in the left. But you can let go. Notice your breath out. Are you allowing yourself to release into whatever support is underneath your right side? Notice your breath in. Can you feel lengthening and lifting through your left side? And go all the way in. Visualize the spinal column itself. So now you're working with both the front and the back of the spine on the left side and the right side. So dividing not from front to back, but left to right. Notice the difference. And if you can feel the movement in between your ribs, remember that your ribs connect to the spinal column. So it's like you're giving your spine a little bit of a massage with those ribs moving in and out. Once again, relaxing all the muscles. Feel your bones hold you. And even though we're still in this yin posture, your breath can continue to create more spaciousness on the inhale and more release on the exhale. And if we're talking about the stira in the front, now you can feel the stira in the front of the left side, but also think of the back side, the sukha. The sukha is the sweetness or the mobility. And to that point, if it feels okay, you might roll that left shoulder back just a little bit. You might have to counterbalance with your leg somehow. But think of rolling that left shoulder just a little bit back, creating more space. And keep breathing. Keep your awareness in your left side. Think of all of the connective tissue, the nerves running through the spine. And you're just sort of rearranging things, creating space in the left, compression in the right. Take 5 to 8 more breaths. Notice the prop, the ground underneath the right ribs. That's giving you feedback. You can feel when you're falling into it on the exhalation, when you're lifting away or pressing into it on the inhalation. Last few breaths. And then once again, come out slow. So think one limb at a time. If your hand's overhead or your arm, take that down first. If you're rolling back at all, roll forward, bring your legs in. We're going to want to come off that prop. And we're just going to do a little bit of a comparison. So before we go to the other side, roll onto your back. And here's where I like to give you options. You can, of course, do any movement, including hugging your knees in. Windshield wipers can be really nice. So maybe doing movement first, or just taking your legs out and feeling the left and right sides of your spine. What does it feel like? Is one lung more accessible? Do your hips feel like one is higher or lower than the other, or your shoulders? Can your brain sense a difference in size or weight or length between the left side of your body and the right side of your body. And just noticing. And then you are welcome to just roll right onto your left side. I'm going to do what I call the flip and flop, so that I'm still facing you. And you'll want to bring whatever prop worked on the first side. Usually it's the same. But remember, I'm using a block because I like something firmer. Not everybody does. You can also use like a bolster, nice soft blankets, right? But it's going to go right somewhere right here on your side body, just to give you that little bend, the side bend. And you can start with your knees just stacked together. You can use your left arm as a pillow, or if that doesn't work, please feel free to bring a pillow in underneath your head and neck. You may get a little stretch in your right side of your neck, but you get to choose how much. And start by seeing, can you accept what is underneath you and where it is? Sometimes that little, like an inch will make all the difference in the world as to where it is. So accept what's underneath you, including the floor, under your legs, your head, your arms. And then take your hand to your right ribs, your right lung. Picture your right lung, your beautiful right lung. And start to breathe into the right lung. And sometimes that's all we need to create more spaciousness. And you'll sense how it's hard to breathe into the left lung because it is being smushed. Oh, but that right lung is juicy and available. So breathe into it. And see if you can exaggerate that just a little bit. Imagine a balloon floating up. Feel your armpit and your hips spread apart from one another. And then come back together just a little bit. And if you want to add the movement of the arm and the leg, so the somatic part to me is really just using that breath, but you can also lengthen by inhaling, reaching through right arm and leg as you lift your side body. Exhale. Let it go. Let yourself fall into the left ribs and side. Inhale, lengthen through the right. Visualize your spine. So even though we use the arm and leg, keep your mind's awareness in the spine. You've got lots of vertebrae, 5 in the low back to think about, 12 in the center of the spine, what we call the thoracic spine, and 7 in your neck. The other way we think about it is space and boundaries. So breathing in, you're creating the spaciousness through your right side, but there will be a boundary how far you can go. You can explore that boundary so that then when we come into the yin pose, you know your comfy landing spot. What gives you the greatest amount of space through your right side and compression in your left without straining. And go ahead and find that for yourself. I'm going to drop my head down because I do like to stretch the right side of the neck as well. Oop, I forgot my block. So I do like to put my hand on a block just to give the arm a little bit more comfortable and more comfort. It can be up here, down here. And remember, if the arm overhead isn't working for you, try your hand at your shoulder or behind your head. Arm can be bent, right? Always take your first 5 to 10 breaths to find it, to land into the yin pose where you're not struggling to hold it. The bones will hold you. The bones are like part of the earth. Think of your bones being held and supported by the earth. And then the muscles relax onto the bones. You can continue to explore breath into your right lung, particularly your breath in. And as you breathe out, Let your left side body release and land into the ground. Now see that right side. Think of the discs in the front and the spinal process, the sticking out part of your spine in the back on the right. Making this beautiful side bend for you. You're just staying present to enjoy it, receive it. A lot of times the hardest part about yin is the not doing, the just being. So you can focus on your breath. Do what I call the imagery of anatomy by visualizing your spine, maybe even your organs. Invite yourself into your liver. Breathe to your liver. Take 5 to 8 more breaths, just staying present in your body. Whatever it's showing you. Last few breaths. And I'll oftentimes imagine how I'm going to come out. How is it going to feel? And does it feel the way I think it's going to? So see yourself. Do you want to come out with your leg first or your arm? If you dropped your shoulder back, maybe you can roll the shoulder back first. Continuing to breathe into your right side. Really slow release. Put your camera on slow-mo. And then again, we'll remove what's ever underneath us. And we'll come onto our back just for a moment. You're invited to be still, or this time, to just stretch out those side bodies. What you can do is take your feet to the ground as wide as your hips. And inhale, reach the left knee forward and the left hand overhead. And exhale, come back. And then inhale, right knee and thigh forward, reach your right arm overhead. Exhale back. So we're also creating a little bit of a rotation and a length on one side and then the other. Just a few of these if it feels okay, or just being still when you come out. We all know what we need when we listen. All right, take your time. If you're on your back still or moving, roll to your side. We're going to be coming up to a seated position. And this is another one where I am going to encourage you to use a blanket. Because what happens oftentimes if we don't use a blanket is our back goes here. It goes into what we call red light reflex in somatics. But more importantly, we're starting already in a position of flexion. And the way we do flexion is we want to think there's 2 hinges. There's a hinge at your hips and there's a hinge at your waist. We want to begin to create the flexion from the hinge at our waist. It generally feels better for your low back. So if you take a blanket, and it might even need to be higher than this one, I'm going to double mine up, and you take it and you put it, sit on it, go ahead, pop up on it, but not right in the center. Scoot yourself forward to where you feel like you're about to fall off, so the edge of the sits bones will be on the blanket. And then I'm going to turn towards you, and you'll notice it'll keep your pelvis in a little bit more of that forward tilt, so we're not starting out with a low back in a rounded position. So we're going to do a couple of different positions for the legs. The first one being legs wide. If you find that the legs extended is too much pulling in your hamstrings, for any of these, you can feel free to bend your knees and place your feet on the floor. All we're going to do is explore the back body. So think of moving initially from your hip crease and creating circles. And yes, you're going to feel some stretching through the thighs and the buttocks. But look again towards creating an equal amount of compression through the whole front of the spine and an equal amount of tension or stretching in the whole back. So you can drop your shoulders as you come forward, and you can switch the direction of the circles. And so if the legs are getting in the way, note that. Because when we do our yin in the forward fold, I'm going to give you a choice of what leg position is most comfortable for your spine. So how does this one feel? And maybe your legs are wider. If you've got more stretching ability in your inner thighs, that's all good. But what does it feel like for your spine to come forward, to round? So remember, now we're putting that compression on the discs in the front, and the back side of the spine is creating space. Just a few more here. And then we're going to change the leg position. So now slide your legs together. We're going to come into what's often called a Baddha Konasana or dragon. We can go by we're going to do 3 positions. We're going to do the caterpillar, the butterfly, and the dragonfly. So how do you want to fly today? Take your feet together, and they can be further away, closer. The closer they are, the more stretch you're going to get in your inner thighs. But remember about your spine. This is about your spine again. You can also take your hands to the ground. So initiate the movement from your lower hinge, but then you might also move from the upper hinge. If your low back is okay with that, you might move from your rib cage and your shoulders. How does your spine respond? And it's probably going to be different now because your legs are in a different position. Is it more comfortable or less comfortable? This is our butterfly. Do you feel like you can fly? Light and weightless. And go all different directions. And then we'll come up. So the last position we're going to try out with the legs to see what's most accommodating for the spine is straight out. As you take the legs out, you always have the option to keep the legs relaxed, which is what we'll do in the yin part, or engage the muscles, maybe push the backs of the thighs and knees into the ground. And the reason I like to do this is first, it provides a little bit more stability, but also then when I go into the yin posture, I can note, are the muscles in my legs relaxing, or do they feel active as I'm purposely doing now? So you can draw your kneecaps up your thighs, press through your heels. See what feels better as you make those circles. Play with how far forward can you come. I note that as I go from one side to the other, there's one side of my back that's a little crankier, doesn't want to go as far as the other. So you're always choosing to do what is a little more easeful. Okay, so now out of these 3 foot positions, your caterpillar, your butterfly, or your dragonfly, which one was most comfortable when you were moving in the spine? Because that's the one that I want you to choose for our forward fold. So I'm usually not, but today for whatever reason, I'm going to go wide feet apart. Upabhishta Konasana. So then I'm going to think about folding first from the lower hinge. And right now I'm only lower hinge. So I'm keeping my heart lifted, not folding from the waist yet, but my low back's okay with me going into the waist. So I'm going to go there and then find something to rest. So sometimes it's a matter of, excuse me, Milo, you can even stack blocks together to bring them up to your head, right? So you're not necessarily looking for, if you want to think of we say find your edge, a scale of 1 to 10. Don't go straight to that 10. Try your 5 first, because you'll have time to deepen it if it feels okay. If you find that your legs are completely distracting you because there's too much pulling through your hamstrings and you're really not getting that nice spaciousness in your back body, then I would encourage you to bend your knees. You can bend them here, you can do that Baddha Konasana, but that may feel better for you. So whether or not we add the back line of the legs in the tension is up to you. But just recognize that is also an option. So settling in, I want you to feel your back body. And just like you could do with your front in the back bends, breathe into the back body. Think of the backs of your lungs. And picture, this is the sukha side, the sweetness. The sukha side is about movement, mobility, versus the front side was about the stability, the sthira, the steadiness. So all the ways that the back of your spine create mobility for you, you're just giving them an opportunity to feel spacious. Notice the compression and the front of the spine. Can you make that equal throughout all parts? It's not all going into one part of your spine. And just by sensing your breath coming into the backs of the lungs, up the back body, you can continue to create spaciousness in the back. As you breathe out, just feel the weight of your torso fall towards the ground. Let it fall towards your legs, whatever's in front of you. Levity as you breathe in to the back body, and gravity as you breathe out, letting the front body fall. Whatever leg position you've chosen, let that fall. You can even feel the spaciousness in the back of the neck. Breathe into the back of the neck. And enjoy finding the place of space and boundaries. And we vow to remain still as much as we can. Take a few more breaths into the back, just facilitating the spaciousness. And see, is your body saying you're just in the right spot? That juicy middle range? Do you need to back out a little bit? Or is your body inviting you to go a little bit deeper for these last 10, 12 breaths? And remembering that it's about creating steadiness and comfort and just enough sensation. Sensation without strain, particularly when you feel that compression in the front of the spine, but enough to give the back body an opportunity to breathe, to move. Many of us spend a lot of time with the spine in a more forward fold position, or flexion, as we say. But it's not a place of relaxation. Make this spacious and relaxed in your back body. Last few breaths. Create that image of how you want to come out, little by little. I invite you, if your hands are in front, crawl your fingertips in, just tiny little crawls. And something I really like to do for myself is to take one hand to the forehead. And you're going to use the strength of your arm to help lift your head as you slowly think of coming out one vertebrae at a time. Imagine like you're painting your spine from the bottom to the top. And as you touch each vertebrae with that brush, it's slowly lifting up. And your arm is there to lift your head, bring your neck back to a neutral position. Notice when your ears are over your shoulders and your shoulders are over your hips. Your juicy center is back. And there you are. We have one more movement, and that is our rotational movement of the spine. So I invite you to take your legs back. And we're going to do this one. We'll start by coming on our right side body. You can keep blocks handy in case you end up using them, but you may also want a blanket underneath your head. And if that's the case, keep it so that it's long to the back side of your mat, so behind you on the right, so that when you roll your head is still supported. So you can put that down, come on to your right side, just stack your knees in any way it feels good for you. If there's any discomfort in the knees, you can also put like a block or a blanket between your thighs to bring more comfort into the hips. A little trick that I like to do. Then bring that right shoulder forward just a little bit. Let your hands just stack and fall. So we're going to be creating the rotation, and we want to do it from the spine, not the arms or the legs. So feel your left shoulder blade and your left collarbone. Find those bony landmarks. And as you breathe in, begin to roll the shoulder blade towards the ground and imagine trying to turn your collarbone towards the ceiling. And as you breathe out, roll it back. Collarbone comes towards the floor. Shoulder blade comes towards the floor. Inhale, roll it. And I like to breathe into my left lung. Just let your arms slide. Exhale, come back. So we're building this rotation from the shoulders to the hips. Let the hips kind of follow. But think you're spiraling from the upper body to the lower body. And you can feel your spine rotating. The neck, the shoulders, the waist, and a little bit even in the low back. So if that feels okay and you want to go a little bit deeper, what you can do is take your left hand to the base of the head. And then you would inhale, gently press the head into the hand. You're still moving from the shoulder blade and the collarbone and your waist. Exhale, come all the way back. You could drop your elbow down. So think about how you're initiating this movement. You could do it from your head too. Feel yourself as you roll towards your right ear, even onto the right forehead on the bottom of the exhalation. As you inhale, start rolling through the right ear, the base of the skull, all the way to the back of the head towards the left ear. And exhale, come back. So take this somatic movement to explore how far can you go in the rotation to where you're still breathing. And there's just enough sensation without straining. That's the key. That's where we want to land in the yin posture. And that's what we'll do the next time you open up on the inhalation. So rather than keeping your hand on your head, usually it's nice to place your left hand on your rib cage. And if your left shoulder is not all the way on the ground, you're better off doing that. Or if you go to extend your arm, you're going to strain the front of the shoulder. So hand can stay there. I'm actually going to remove my blanket. And work on just letting that left shoulder blade fall to the floor. If it's there, great. You're welcome to extend your left arm. So this is, again, about the spine and creating rotation. But if you feel like you want to extend your right leg out to get more stretch through the low back and the hip, find what works for you with the legs. I actually like to stack my left knee on top of my right and just let that inner knee fall. That gets a little more stretch around your sacrum, but make sure it's comfortable for you. And keep adjusting and falling. Take these last few breaths to find where you're comfortable in the rotation. And typically people will be told to turn your head towards the extended arm. I think you should keep your head and neck wherever it feels good for you. You can even gently rock it back and forth if you find that you want just that little bit of movement. I know one of my tricks when I'm busier in my mind and I'm trying to do yin to calm myself is to allow little movements like wiggling fingers or toes, or rocking the head from side to side, even moving the eyes underneath the eyelids. You're allowed to do those things, to create little movements that will give you a sensation to focus on. And then if you can, come back into your spine and feel the way that the stira, the steady side in the front, the discs are playing with the sukha, the mobile side in the back, to create this beautiful spiral position of your spine. Your left lung may be more accessible, and you can breathe into your left lung. But also as you breathe out, any parts of the body that are touching the ground, let them keep falling. Let that left arm fall, left shoulder. Think of the shoulders falling to the left and the legs and hips falling to the right. And somewhere between the pelvis and the shoulders is this beautiful rotation that you're just able to see your spine like a spiral staircase. You can walk your breath up it and down it. Another nice thing to do during yin is to notice not only what's loud, but what's quiet. Or what gets loud when you're quiet. Is it your body or your mind? Take your last 5 deep breaths. If your body invites you to deepen it, please feel free to do that in any way. But just appreciating beautiful mobility of your spine, being able to rotate, letting the pelvis go in one direction and the shoulders go in the opposite direction. Picture yourself how you want to come out of this, how you want to release. One limb at a time, so maybe the arm first. Very slowly. The legs. Notice whatever you can notice. Rolling back to your right side. We're going to come onto our front side. We're going to revisit that front position before we do the other side of the twist. And if you didn't do it earlier, cross opposite hand to elbow. And if you need more movement, you can rock your legs side to side. Shift your hips. Find a place of stillness where from the front side, you can visualize your spine. Maybe notice any differences in the low back, left to right, in the ribs, left to right, in the shoulders. Three to 5 more rounds of breath. Just letting yourself experience what it feels like to come out of the pose and what's still lingering even now that you're out. Are there any differences? So for you, you're welcome to just roll on to your left side. I'm going to push back, coming on to my left side. Milo's not moving much today, so coming onto that left side and letting yourself settle in for a moment. I did not bring my blanket for this side for my head, but remember, you may want a blanket or pillow underneath you. Let your left side fall to the ground first. You can let your right arm fall and locate yourself through your right collarbone and shoulder blade. So we tend to oftentimes try to twist from our arm. Leave your arm out of the project. Begin to move from your torso or even your head. You could take your gaze behind you. And if you're moving from your head, there's a difference between moving from your chin. If you're always moving from your chin, try moving from your nose or the roof of the mouth, or even feeling the head itself, the feedback you get as the head rolls on the ground towards that right ear, back to the left ear. If you're doing it to your breath, breathe into your right lung as you roll to the right. Breathe out. Let yourself land towards the ground. And then if this is really nice and comfy for you and you want a little bit more, take your hand to the base of the head and just a slight bit, you're still rolling, you're not lifting your head, but slight bit of using your arm to take your shoulder towards the ground. You'll get a little more stretch through the pectoral region and the front of your collarbones. Exhale, come all the way back with the elbow. Inhale, roll. And notice how the rotation will create sensation in the arm, in the waist, and all the way down into the hip and the low back. And for most of us, one side might feel very different than the other. So maybe you felt more in the shoulders on one side and in the hip on the other. Or there's just a general understanding that one side is a little bit tighter than the other. That's okay. It's rolling in and out and playing with what is your end range of motion. Where do you want to land for that yin pose? Where is that space and boundaries? You decide how far you go in bumping up into your boundaries. And take your last roll. Remember, there was the option, I apologize, to put a bolster or something between your knees. So this is my tighter side. I'm going to keep my hand on my ribs because my shoulder blade is not touching the ground and I don't want to strain my area around my collarbones. Also the option to extend your leg if you like to get more of a stretch in the low back and the buttocks area. That's there for you. Or as I like to do, just drop my inner right knee inside the left. Let's see your spine again, like a spiral staircase. Breathing in, creating space between the pelvis and the shoulders. Think of lengthening with your breath. And as you breathe out, let the shoulders fall to the right and your hips fall to the left. The two girdles get to go in opposite directions, and that's what's creating the rotation in the spine. There's no argument. They listen and play well together. Hips to the left, shoulder to the right. You can feel the essence of your breath through your right side, right lung. But I'm sure you've seen pictures of the spinal column before. Picture your spine and the rotation of the spine in this position. Can you make it still feel juicy and fluid? Recognizing those qualities of sthira and sukha. We need both in the spine. We need the steadiness and we need the comfort. Check in. Are there any places in your body where still holding yourself or resisting. The shoulders, the legs, position of your head and neck. And does your body invite you to go a little bit deeper? Are you in a good space? Sometimes just changing the leg position a little bit. How can you create a place that is enough sensation that it gives your mind something to watch, something to feel, but it doesn't scare you away? It's a place you want to be. You can breathe into it. Last few breaths. And picture how you want to exit this pose. I'm going to move my head a little bit first. Roll my shoulder. Always do what your body asks you. If my right shoulder said, I want to roll. Okay, I don't ask it why. I say, you got it, right? That's that intuition. Slowly coming out of the posture. We're going to finish on our back. And before we completely release into a lovely neutral spine, I'm going to have you draw your legs in, and we're going to do a little bit of a happy baby to release the low back, because generally that's the place that most people hold some tension, as well as the shoulders, but your shoulders have landed on the ground. Draw your legs in. Maybe just rock a little bit with the legs still falling into your body. So feel the weight of the thighs, and the more you can let the weight of the thighs fall into your body, then the tail will start to lift, and you'll feel that gentle stretch and lengthening through your low back. You can also feel the center of your spine coming deeper into the earth. And if it's okay, you can hold the backs of the thighs and take your feet up overhead. You could hold your ankles or your feet. It's really whatever gets you a nice, easy back stretch. I like to bring the chin slightly towards the chest, get the back of the neck long. Maybe just a little bit of rocking. Take 5 more breaths in stillness or a gentle, playful movement. Really feeling the back body land into the ground. All the heaviness of the front body releasing. And the support you can feel underneath your spine. The weight of the legs falling in to the torso. And we'll release that down. Because we did the spine, when we go to extend the legs, if you're planning on extending your legs, I would highly recommend taking a blanket and rolling it up and putting it underneath your knees or thighs so you can keep a bend in your knees. If you know you want a little more movement before you stretch out, please do that. But we're trying to find a spot where the spine can be the spine. So we have 4 natural curves in the spine. Let's find those. So feel yourself from the pelvis, the sacrum. And you might note the way that the sacrum gently curves into the earth. Can you feel the space between your 2 hips, the sacred sacrum, and any way that it connects, any pressure between the sacrum and the earth? And take a few breaths into that space in your spine. Visualize it. I breathe into the low belly. And then next come up to what we call the lumbar spine. It's 5 beautiful vertebrae. And that's our next arch. And that one curves slightly away from the ground. Maybe you can even sense that little pocket of air underneath your low back. Can you feel the way your spine curves away from the earth? Again, maybe just breathing in and around the navel center to the front of the low back. So these curves are so important. It's curves or arches that give the structure and stability to our spine. And then we'll go into the next one. And you can think of the whole length of your torso from your navel center up. You can place hands on the rib cage, the heart center. And think of your ribs, your shoulder blades. And sense the way this area, once again, like the sacrum, is more in tune with the earth. Receiving the earth, pressing into the earth, curving into the ground. And where is the majority of the weight resting? The low ribs, the mid ribs, behind your heart, shoulder blades. Just feel this third curve in your spine. It's going down into the ground. And then finally, we come into the cervical spine, the neck. 7 beautiful vertebrae. You can visualize them in your mind's eye. If you want to touch your neck, feel free to do that. Feel the natural curve in the neck. And once again, like the low back, the curve in the neck is floating away from the ground. Can you sense that? It's like a bridge between the torso and the head, a floating bridge of suspension. You might even breathe into the throat, base of the throat, back of the neck. Feel that natural curve that exists. And just take a moment to come up your spine one more time through the center of the spine. There's this gateway between front and back. Energy gateway we sometimes refer to as the Sushumna Nadi. And as you come up, feel the energy of prana flowing freely through your spine. Visualize all of the muscles, the nerves, each vertebrae being touched by your awareness, your gratitude, your understanding of this beautiful relationship in your spine between sthira and sukha, steadiness and comfort, space and boundaries. Feel free to stay here as long as you'd like. When you're ready to come out, if you want to do a nice big full body stretch and arch your back, wiggle your toes and your fingers, do a little happy dance, because that's what the spine is for. Find that mobile part. We've been still. Take your time rolling to one side if you'd like. We better finish up. This is a long one, and Milo may be done with his nap soon, so Thanks for joining me. Don't let anybody else make you think that your spine is a problem to be solved. It is strong, it is vibrant, and it will carry you wherever you need to go. Peace, joy, love, and light.